Eric Liebenhagen here, taking you down the true path to financial harmony. A lot of us are probably familiar with a lot of the small business studies done in the United States that say things like, 80% of businesses are going to fail within the first 5 years. Or there's another metric that says 80% of businesses that survive after those 5 years are going to be operating deposit to deposit. So one bad month and they're going to run into a really serious cash flow problem. There's even another study that says over half of all small business owners are overpaying their income taxes. So what's troubling to me is that if you take a look at all of this together, do a little bit of math, about 95% of small businesses in the United States are struggling with some aspect, if not all aspects, of their finances at any given time. These are things that are relevant to all types of companies. It doesn't matter if you're sole proprietorship or a corporation, a private practice optometrist, or any other type of business owner. The truth is, really, it doesn't have to be this way. There are simple things you can do to ensure that you're one of the top 5% of practice owners who don't face these types of issues. First one here, automate your profits. Put simply, take out your profit first. Simple strategy for this is to set up a separate savings account that you use for nothing else besides your profits. Transfer at least 1% of all the collections into that account before you pay any other bills. And trust me, if you can run your practice when you deposit $1,000, you can run it on $990. It's like you won't even miss it. And if you stay disciplined in this process, you can increase that percentage over time. We consider the break-even point for this to be 10%, 10% profitability using this type of methodology, and work up to 15% or more if you actually want to internally fund your own growth, right? If you don't want to go into massive debt every time you want to grow the practice. Second thing, protect yourself from unnecessary taxes. So don't mishear that right now. I'm not saying that all taxes are unnecessary. What I am saying is that a lot of optometrists in private practice overpay their taxes by not taking full advantage of the tax law. So you may like your tax professional as a person, and that's completely fine, but you should stop and ask yourself, hey, when is the last time my CPA or my tax professional actually came to me with an idea that would save me money? And if the answer is never or rarely, it may be time to find someone who specializes in small business tax strategy. Third way to be in the top 5% is to know your personal number. So I see a lot of financial forecasts using industry data or a benchmark study. And quite honestly, a lot of times those numbers end up being arbitrary and not as helpful as they could be. So the owner's own compensation is oftentimes the first thing to get cut when the business runs into some sort of cash flow trouble. If the practice struggles for years, the owner never really gets paid what they deserve. And it's one common cause of burnout among private practice professionals. So start with a personal income number that you want to achieve. And this is going to help you reverse engineer a meaningful revenue forecast that's going to serve you way better than constantly chasing dollars and having to cut your own pay for you and your family every time you turn around. Fourth way is to know your numbers beyond the financials. Financial statements are a useful tool for measuring business performance, but you also need to be aware of other metrics to provide insight into how well your practice is performing. These are things that don't show up on the common financial statements, like a balance sheet and profit and loss statement that you may be somewhat familiar with. So you should have a separate metrics, or sometimes referred to as a KPI dashboard. So some important other measurements that you want to take a look at include clinical versus optical revenue and the profitability of each, the profit margin of each, number of completed exams, the capture rate, debt to income ratio, accounts receivable aging, just to name a few of the most common ones. And then the fifth and final thing is to just be persistent, right? Manage the business side of your practice regularly and build this into your normal kind of operations. This is not something that's ever going to change for as long as you own your practice. So never stop working on maintaining and improving these metrics. They are the vitals, the lifeblood of your practice. So look, 5 simple steps to follow. And if you do, you're going to enjoy a lot greater success in your practice. And you're going to be able to avoid being one of those 95% of small business owners who are constantly struggling and not achieving their personal goals.